This conference will now be recorded.
All right, good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, May 12th. Hard to believe, May 12th, the middle of May already. This month, or this year, is just flying by. It's been a very, very interesting year. I was talking with a principal broker yesterday on an issue, and he was also saying things are really weird. I mean, it's just been a strange time for us to be in real estate. Strange in many ways, really good. Strange also in that there's weird things happening that we don't normally deal with. Among those lines, I do want to mention something real important to start with. We are working with buyers who often are out-of-state buyers, people who come from different parts of the country where they have different real estate laws. Some of these buyers don't, most of them don't understand Oregon real estate law, and they're used to the state in which they left. Now, they probably may have done one or two transactions in their lifetime, but if the most recent transaction they've done has been a sale in another state, they have right in their head a mindset about what is allowed and is not allowed. Just so you're aware, in some states, buyers have a walkaway clause for no reason whatsoever in the first couple of weeks of a transaction. They can just say, hey, changed my mind, I'm leaving this transaction. That is legal in other states. In Oregon, there is no walkaway clause for buyers that are not justified. We know that built into the contract, there are 4 standard walkaways. 1, review. Oh, no sound? Katie, can't you hear me? Is anyone not hearing me? Can you guys hear me now? Okay, thank you, thank you. I'm sorry, Katie, can't hear me. Check your settings, make sure your speakers are turned up, your sound volume is turned up large enough so that you can actually hear. So, did you guys all hear what I've already said? Okay, good. Yes, thank you. Okay, thanks. Okay, great. So anyway, the walkaway clause in other states is not here in Oregon. So for us, there are standard into every transaction 4 built-in clauses and contingencies that a buyer can walk away from. First, of course, is the review of the disclosure statements. And that is a contingency that is built into the contract all the way and up to the day of closing. If the seller does not provide a copy of the disclosure statements, the buyer can terminate at any time and get all their earnest money back. And that's the one time they can send it to a termination to escrow, and escrow does not have to have the seller sign in order to get the earnest money back to the buyer. Second thing is, of course, the home inspection. They have the right to terminate based upon review of the home inspection. That, of course, costs money. Third is review of the preliminary title report and supporting documents. Now, when you terminate based upon review of the preliminary title report and supporting documents, you have to provide the other side what they are not satisfied with. For instance, say in review of the CC&Rs, they discover that they can't put a fence into the home, and they had anticipated fencing the property, and so they need to terminate because they can't put in a fence. The seller, when provided with this information, has a right to try to rectify this issue. Changing CC&Rs is very challenging, and most sellers just say, hey, it's not worth it, I can't do it. So that is a legitimate termination. But realize in the case of terminating based upon those, if the seller requests an explanation, you have to provide it, and the seller has a right to try to rectify it. And of course, the 4th termination is always based upon financing. So if the home does not finance, or if the buyer doesn't qualify. Now, we are in a limbo time right now with people waiving the home appraisal. When you waive the home appraisal, you're basically saying, in essence, I'm waiving the contingency that the home has to qualify for the loan. People are waiving that home appraisal in order to try to beat out multiple offers. And recognize when you do that, you are saying, in essence, buyers saying, in good faith, they will bring up the difference in the price if the home doesn't appraise to the agreed to sales price in cash. If they can't do that, they are basically not operating in good faith. So making sure that they actually have a figure they can cover the difference. Have that conversation with your client. If they are waiving the appraisal, do they have tens of thousands of dollars? Do they have hundreds of thousands of dollars? You know, in some cases, we have properties not appraising right now because there's no justifiable comp for these properties. And if the seller says, or if the buyer says, I will waive the appraisal, is there a figure they can waive the appraisal up to? For instance, can they say, I can only cover, if it doesn't appraise $10,000, I have an additional $10,000, or I have additional $20,000. Make sure when you write those contingencies in there, you're saying the top that they can actually do, because if they come back, win the bid and get the house, have waived the appraisal, and we get a low appraisal, their earnest money may be at risk. Now, we've talked about the fact that the appraisal contingency is part of the financing contingency. The buyer also has to be approved for the loan. So if the buyer doesn't qualify for the loan, you should still be able to walk and get the buyer's earnest money back. However, if the reason the buyer does not qualify is because he doesn't have sufficient funds to make that difference in cash to meet the low appraisal and still qualify for their loan in their loan to debt ratio, then that could be a cause for concern and a cause for problems. So, and we're experiencing that right now. So does anyone have questions on that? Any questions or concerns regarding that? Because it's an ongoing issue. Yeah. Okay, great. If not, I'm gonna move on to the topics of which we were going to cover today. The first of which is going to be our little mini class. I want to go over this really quick. It's not going to be any longer than about 10 minutes. And this is a recap of geographic farming that we did.
Oh, Linnea.
Yeah.
This is Katie. My microphone wasn't working, but I did have a quick question regarding the appraisal. I mean, so many clients are asking, you know, how do we know it's going to appraise? There's just so much uncertainty. And I mean, what basically, you know, everyone's kind of on edge until the appraisal happens, which is, you know, dependent on how quick they're being ordered, around 3 weeks out from opening of escrow. So really, what can we say to reassure our clients regarding the appraisal? I mean, really, we don't know personally what it's going to appraise for. I mean, we have an idea that with the trends, you know, around 50K over is appraising generally, but we still don't know 100% that it's going to appraise.
Well, it's all unique to the property itself.
Right.
It is. And are there comps to support 50,000 over asking based upon the type of property it is? Remember, appraisers are going to be just like agents. We're going to look at comps. We're going to try to find comparables. So we have no way of knowing. I can tell you that we had an issue with Bear Land Purchase that did not appraise. And it was 28 under asking price, under agreed to sales price, 28,000. It did not appraise. So it is all dependent upon the property. And if there's not comps to justify the price, hopefully you have appraisers who are really doing their job and looking carefully at comps. But I mean, it just all depends. And it also depends upon the appraiser themselves. What are they looking for? I always say, as a listing agent, it is so important to talk and meet the appraiser at the property. After you're in contract, I suggest taking the lockbox off the property so that the appraiser has to go through you to access the home, and then meet them out there and show them what happened. Tell them you had 10 offers. Show them what's going on with the property. Show them the comps that you utilized to justify the asking price and what happened with the agreed to bidding war and the agreed to sales price. So that would be the thing. There's no hard science, Katie, and there's no way of knowing for sure what's going to happen. So I wish I could give you a better answer on that. It's challenging. Yeah, it's really challenging. Any other questions on that, guys? Okay, if not, let's go on to this geographic farming. And again, 5 easy steps to getting more listings. And we all know right now, listings is the key. So it's going to help. These 5 steps should help you get more listings if you're just starting to farm an area. But even after you get a listing or 2 in that area, it's easier to really start really heavily farming. So let me explain a little bit about it. Geographic farming is the act of marketing your real estate brand in a neighborhood with the intent of becoming the go-to resource and the real estate agent they think of when getting ready to sell their property. 2 things I really want to emphasize is the definition of the first word, brand, and the phrase go-to resource. First, your brand must be recognizable and memorable, which we'll be discussing in just a minute. And second, you need to be recognized as a local expert and need to establish trust in the neighborhood in order to be that go-to resource, which I'll also touch in just a minute. So let's jump first into the steps to get more listings through geographic farming. First, your face is your brand. People will trust a face more than a company or logo. And once you have their trust, they are more likely to use you as their real estate agent and recommend you to others. In pretty much every class we've done on building your real estate business, we've emphasized the need to break through that trust barrier. Now, here's a sample postcard that helps you do that. By the way, there are a number of companies that provide marketing postcards for real estate agents, including the ability to have them mail the postcards at a reduced cost to you. This postcard is from a company called Postcard Mania. And of course, Brittany has access to bear printing and express docs and various other things too. And we're here to help you put these things together and work on them. So then once you've established your image, plaster it everywhere you can in the neighborhood. So get your face everywhere. Well, maybe not there. I saw this yesterday and I'm like, oh my goodness, talk about someone who's plastering their face everywhere. I don't know if this guy gets calls, but he sure has a sense of humor. Anyway, one of the things we've talked about before are people who have these brands that really stand out. Now, the guy with the red shoes we used at our geographic farming class about a year ago. And it's been a while since we've seen his image. We just Googled realtor red shoes. He popped up. Obviously, he's been super, super successful in branding himself, and obviously he's standing out. One of the things we don't see enough and get used enough in real estate is real estate signs with pictures on them. As we drive through neighborhoods, you notice that most real estate agents use the company signs, which is great. But if they would invest back in themselves and put their image on the signs, you can really start identifying your brand in the neighborhood. People will see, oh, here's another Don Gebhard listing, or here's another Wendy Hooper listing. So all these sort of things can really help you stand out. These are some professionally created images that these agents have plastered everywhere, including on their signs. And our hope often in writing independent brokerage is that our agents would recognize that the franchise fee you would normally pay to a corporate office for building the national brand is better spent on building your own brand. And so here's a great example of how that can be done. And if you need to get more ideas, Google real estate agents Vargas Creative Group. Vargas is with a V, V-A-R-G-A-S, Creative Group. You'll get a ton of ideas about building your own brand. Another idea, do open houses as much as possible. So who comes to open houses? It's the neighbors. What do they want to know? More than ever right now, they want to know what their home is worth. And if you're comfortable in this COVID environment, it's a great way to meet the neighbors and start a conversation. Now, I know it's limited, but I'm starting to see more and more open houses starting to hit, and recognize it's a great opportunity to meet with people. Next is something we've also touched on before, just listed and just sold postcards. Using those postcards to blanket your geographic area. So if you already have a listing in a neighborhood, or in case of some of our brokers recently, more than one in a neighborhood, what a perfect opportunity to become the go-to person for that neighborhood. Your sellers, by agreeing to use you to list their home, are signaling to their neighbors that you can be trusted. So it's a great time to use the layered marketing approach we discussed at the last class, branding class that we did, to hit them with just listed and later just sold postcards. To get a list of names and addresses in your area, you can go to CRS, and if you don't know where that is, it's on Flex MLS, or go to your escrow customer service, and they can help you. Then it's just a matter of getting the cards made with a company like Bear Printing, which Brittany can help you, or other companies who specialize in postcards and have tons of choices, like there's another one called Prospects Plus. And then the last thing that we wanted to talk, here's some examples of our company's postcards that we have done recently within our own brokerage. And these are very effective ways of blanketing things. And then the last thing is to use a Matterport 3D virtual tour for your property listing, because neighbors love to view them. We've noticed a big uptick in the number of listings from other companies starting to use Matterport tours. But the one big difference is they are paying photographers to do this for them. And the average starting price published online is about $250. We do these things virtually for free. For those of you who are using Matterports and want to farm an area, consider taking a few of those dollars you're saving and put them into a custom name writer where neighbors and others can click on a custom QR code or make a tiny URL so you just type in a short URL onto their phone right there in front of your home. So in summary, here's the idea of a Matterport. When you get a listing or two in your area, consider these 5 things to try and get more listings. Your face is your brand, plaster your face everywhere, do open houses as much as possible, use just listed and just sold postcards, and use 3D open house virtual tours. Remember, sellers whose listings you represent are trying to help you break down that trust barrier, but as you know, that isn't usually enough to get the phone ringing. You need to build your brand in that neighborhood by the name that comes first to mind as the go-to trusted realtor in the area. So I'm happy to meet individually with you to help you with the idea of geographic farming. Just let me know how I can help. Any questions on this before we go to our trends report? I don't know if anybody is going to be plastering their face in the bathroom, but I thought that was pretty funny. All right, let's move on. So let's go to the trends report. So here's the national trends that we're talking about, what's been happening through this year up through April mostly. And this is so true. The main driver of the housing shortage has been the long-term decline in the construction of single-family homes. That decline has resulted in the decrease in supply of entry-level single-family homes or starter homes. And this is from the Vice President and Chief Economist at Freddie Mac. That is very true. Look at this data right here. This is single-family housing units completed by decade in the country. So you can see between 2010 and 2019, we had roughly half the number of homes built that we did in the decade of 2000 to 2009. This is why we don't have enough homes to sell across the country. A lot of this is tied into the housing recession when banks pulled the plug on all new construction, when builders abandoned projects that were half done. Houses were left incomplete, just standing there. It was a hard time with banks calling in their loans. And so has taken a while, because I can basically think of in Bend itself, the only place we had any construction going on when we had the height of the housing crisis was in Northwest Crossing, and that was hard money lending that enabled some builders to keep building. Other than that, every housing unit, everything here was shut down. I know we were pulled. My husband's building company was pulled. All of our financing was pulled, even though we never had defaulted on anything. Anything connected with building, all those loans were pulled. So that's why we have such a shortage of housing right now. Look at what happened right before that, 2000 to 2009, 12.6 million homes were built. Again, about half that. So with this housing shortage right now, we are seeing people Googling, when is the housing market going to crash? That term spiked almost 2,500% 100% the past month. People are looking at this and saying, wow, we're seeing prices to shoot up. The last time that happened was in the housing crisis. But the reason why we have housing prices shooting up right now has nothing to do with bad loans or people robbing Peter to pay Paul and jumping in on the flipping of the homes. Right now, it's just the lack of homes. So here is the year-over-year change in listings. Now, again, recognize this is comparing year over year. So this is a trend that is going to show that in April of 2021, we had a 40% increase compared with April of 2020. But the difference here is you have to compare apples to apples. Think about April of 2020. We were in the height of the coronavirus pandemic, and a lot of people just weren't listing their homes. So now, coming out of the pandemic with people feeling more confidence with vaccines and people just feeling better about themselves and about the economy and what's going on, people are now listing homes. And so this is the reason why we have a spike in new listings. But if you again look at total listings, we are still in a downward trend, down 53% over the year before. So we still have a situation with not enough inventory. So here is the inventory levels in comparison what normally happens. So well, not normally, but this is kind of what happened last in 2020. In December of 2019, actually, we had roughly 1,210,000 homes that were listed across the country. And in January, this is normal trends. It started going up in February, and then the coronavirus hit, but that started to level off. But now, in December of 2020, in the height of the coronavirus issue, we're staying kind of level as far as inventory levels. Look at what happened in January, February, the same number. Now in March, we had a little bit of an uptick, but our normal upticks that normally happens, you know, we have a lack of inventory around the holidays. It normally starts going up in the spring, and then another big spike in summertime. We're just haven't been following those same trends, which is also another reason why we don't have those inventory levels the way they need to be. So demand remains strong as home buyers are snatching listings quickly off the MLS, and it takes approximately 18 days for a home to go from listing to a contract in the current housing market nationally. A year ago, it took 29 days. This is from the National Association of Realtors. So again, it's showing a year ago, 29 days to go into contract, 18 days nationally. Of course, in our market, it's 4 days, and we'll go into that in just a little bit too. So when will U.S. housing inventory grow again? This is a survey of economists. So this is all predictions from economists. 10% of them thought the first half of 2021, but a big whopping 43% the second half of 2021, which is why when I'm blogging, I'm saying experts are saying they think there's going to be more inventory available the second half of 2021. 26% think the first half of 2020, 12% the second half of 22, and 9% not until 2023. Boy, those guys are kind of gloomy gusses, but you know, they're looking at their what the trends are showing them. So I'm hoping we start getting more inventory. It's going to be a lot tied into people feeling confident and also builders getting houses on the market. So why will people sell this year? Here's the top 5 reasons homeowners are planning to sell. Number 1, our home no longer meets our needs. Number 2, we can make a profit in the current market. Boy, if they ever were thinking about a best time to sell, now is it. 3, we want a smaller house / less work. We're seeing that, people making lifestyle changes. 4, we want to live closer to friends and families. See that too. And 5, we want different features and amenities. And this is from a recent Realtor.com survey. The number 1 reason our home no longer meets our needs, and that is something that we have seen a lot of with the coronavirus pandemic. People recognizing that home is really, really important. And we're saying if we're going to be spending more time at home, we got to make sure our home has the amenities in it that really is most important for our family. If we're going to be working from home, if we're going to have an office in the home, if we're going to have an exercise room, if we have to exercise at home, all these sort of things may be it's the number one reason why people are thinking of selling. So thinking about prospective home buyers planning to buy a home in the next 12 months, looking at the trends on that, 16% of American adults are considering the purchase of a home in the next 12 months. That's a huge increase from just a year ago, which it was only 10%. So again, people are more and more looking at becoming homeowners or purchasing a home. So this trend is definitely upward. So that means we're going to be seeing more home buyers, hopefully more home sellers with more inventory. But this is where the trends are showing us that people are looking. This is also something that people are thinking. This is national trends. Average profit for home sellers has increased 26% between Q1 and Q2. So in Q1, the average profit was $55,750. In Q2, or in Q1 of 2021, it's now $70,000. So, and we know in Bend, depending upon when someone bought their home, there is a lot of equity in these homes that we're selling right now. So Lawrence Young, chief economist at NAR, is saying this is not a bubble. It is simply lack of supply. So all those gloom sayers who's like, when this bubble going to burst? It's not that at all. It's just we need more homes. We need more housing. We need more things built. And here's now an update on what's going on with forbearance. And so where is it? Where are we in the market with that? So this is tracking back a year, and the number of mortgages in active forbearance has been unchanged for the last 3 weeks. So look at it. It was a spike when coronavirus hit, and it's going down and down. So it's at 2.31 million homes that are in active forbearance right now. So what's happening? 400,000 mortgages left forbearance in the last 2 months. People are getting a handle on what's going on with them missing their mortgage payments. So what has happened? In this case, 47.3% of all these people who were missing mortgage payments have caught up. They're paid in full. An additional 36.5% have worked out a repayment plan. So either a loan deferral, tack on those missed payments to the end of the loan, or a loan modification, which will enable them to get caught up. So now only 16.2% are still in trouble. So they are at a point with they have no loss mitigation plan, or they have replant, they're in short sale, deed in lieu, different things like that. So 16.2% in trouble. Okay, so upon leaving forbearance, the percentage of borrowers who are paid in full has been dropping because they've got it worked out. Have worked out a plan, that's gradually going up, which is great. Still in trouble, it's still pretty flat. So those who really couldn't make their payments are still not making their payments and still have issues. So in our market, are there people who haven't made their payments who might be someone to approach with the idea of short selling, trying to work something out? Yeah, there may be. Though short selling, not necessarily. I think these people just maybe need to be approached about, let's get their house sold and get the equity out of your property so you can pay off that mortgage and move on with your life. You may end up with money left over. So recognize that if they do go into foreclosure, that equity is gone. So approaching people who may have problems going on with their loans, it could be a good move if you're looking for some new listings. Here's a Realty Track representative saying that I think the math speaks for itself how well the forbearance program has worked. And it's one of the few times in my career that I've seen a government-initiated program adopted as well and executed as well by the industry as this one. So it's true. This has been a real positive movement for people who, lost their job, couldn't make their payments, and then having this all work out. This has been successful. The Wall Street Journal says that consumers were more upbeat about their income prospects last month, and many appear eager to spend. The survey found 8.9% of Americans plan to buy a home in the next 6 months, the biggest share in record going back to 1978. That is really good. 8.9% want to buy a home in the next 6 months. Best record since 78. That is a huge, huge increase. That means, again, more buyers. Hopefully we'll have more listings for them. There's been a change with mortgage rates. As we know, we've talked about that when the pandemic hit, mortgage rates went way, way down, and then they started an uptick. They went up above 3%, and now they're again below 3%. Everyone says that they anticipate mortgage rates will increase. So all the experts are saying, here's quarter 3, quarter 4, and then moving into 2022, we're looking at an uptick. Still really great rates, below 4% by second quarter of 2022, but not as low as it is, as low as it's been. So I don't know if we're past the low end. You never know when you've hit the bottom until you're past it, but the experts are all predicting an increase. Again, still historically low, still great rates, still should enable people to find and to buy a home, depending upon if you can find one that will work for them. So here is the actual rates. Here's where we are right now. Here is the predicted rates in 2022, moving up. Again, slower rate of increase, but that's prediction. This is from Freddie Mac. What's happening with home prices? This is the prediction. All these people who at the beginning of the year had different figures, they've all revamped their figures upward. So this is predictions for home price forecast for 2021. Predicting the mortgage bankers associations are the ones who are the most, maybe they have their fingers on the pulse a little bit more than other people, recognizing they predict a 10.3% increase in home prices across the country in 2021. Fannie Mae, Zelman, Freddie Mac, NAR, a little bit more conservative on that, but the average is 6.8% across all these forecasts. So we also anticipate prices to continue to rise in Central Oregon, and we'll go over that in just a second. What has actually happened? So home sales are forecasted to increase nicely in 2021 and do well in 2022. So in 2020, there was a total home sales of 6.5 million across the country. In 2021, what are people predicting? Everyone is predicting, from Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and the Mortgage Brokers Association, they are predicting an increase. Again, Mortgage Brokers Association thinking more than that, 7.3. And then in 2022, again, more homes being sold. So hopefully more people will be listing, people who have resales, and builders building more. Here's the last slide here. This is something for us to kind of consider. This is a Japanese swordsman and philosopher who believes perception is strong and sight weak. In strategy, it is important to see distant things as if they were close and to take a distanced view of close things. So thinking about that, we often live in the here and now. And if we can look at what we think things will be in the future, look at things from a distance, you can start planning accordingly and recognize if the prediction is more homes in the future, what can you do to be positioned to get those listings? If the perception right now is that interest rates are going to be going up, what can you do with your home buyers to help them prepare for that? If you're working with first-time home buyers and you haven't been able to find a property for them, are you advising them that maybe what they need to do is work very closely with their mortgage lender and have a strategy so that they can be more likely to win the purchase by having a bigger down payment? Are they saving? Are they really working hard towards those things? So with mortgage rates going up, that's going to impact them on their buying power. A lot of these things to think about here. Does anyone have questions on this before I get to local stuff? Any thoughts about this at all? Any comments or ideas that they want to share? Okay. If not, I'm going to go ahead and get into local, which has been really interesting. So let's get to the local one. Okay, where are we? Looking at April 2021 versus April 2020. April 2020 is when I started really recognizing that, hey, I had initially thought the COVID lockdown was going to keep us just at marginal real estate. And it was in April of last year that we started recognizing that things, well, we may not be marginal, we may be doing okay. And we started recognizing people were moving out of the large cities, coming to places like Bend because they wanted to have elbow room for their family, if they're going to have to be working from home and having their kids learn from home, having a room with a place with a backyard and maybe a lifestyle that worked better for their needs made better sense, and we would start having an uptick. We had a good April last year. This year we've had a really good April. And to look at it, we had 16 listings in 2020. In 2021, we had 19 listings, which is an increase of 19%, which is great. But look at the volume increase of those listings. We went from 7.6 million to 19, almost 20 million in volume. That's a huge uptick in what we're listing our prices for, what we're listing our homes for. In 2020, we had 34 pending transactions, which was great. In 2021, we had 51, which is an increase of 150% over the year before. A volume level of 16 million to 35 million, more than doubling what we're selling, the value of what we're selling. And then the big increase here was the closed. We went from 28 closings in 2020 to 62, 221% increase. 62 closings in 2021, volume of $33 million. So this is reflective of the fact January, February, and March have not slowed down. We are still having an amazing real estate year, and we're just doing the best we can to keep up with everything, and it's really amazing to see what's happening. So year to date in 2020, we had 112 closings with $68 million. Year to date in 2021, 165 with volume at $95 million, and that's the gross volume. That's not doubled if we double-ended anything like that. That will be reflected in another slide here. So what's going on with Bend? This again is data right from MLS. If you look at the Bend residential number of listings, active listings below solds and new listings, absorption rate about half a month, sold to list ratio up to 104%, days in market down to hardly anything, price volume. There is so much happening right now, which is just crazy. This is the figure I think I look at the most every month when I do my monthly blog on what's happening with the trends. So looking at April 2021 versus April of 2020 for Bend single family residential. April of 2020, we had 658 active listings. April of 2021, 119. We're down almost 82%. New listings, we were up. Actually, that was a wrong figure. It should be a plus of 32.6%. Went from 193 to 256, which is great. That means people have more confidence to put their homes on the market. New pendings, look at that, up 150% from 171 to 427. And then solds from 171 to 235, up 40%. Sold volume from 99 million to 193 million, up 84%. These are the ones that really I am shocked at. Average sales, what's happened to average sales? We're up to 769,000, but median sales, these are reversed. I got them wrong here, reversed. The median sale for 2020, that is 651. So $651,000 as the median sales price of a Bend home. 651. That just throws me. How can people afford Bend? They just can't. 651,000, the median sales price. Again, the percentage of home to list price. Obviously, we know homes are selling for over asking price, often at 1.4%. And months supply, they went from 3.3 months in 2020 to half a month. So where is Bend Premier? This is looking at January through April 30th. And this is all solds, everything. And this is from MLS, and this of course takes into consideration if we are on both sides of a transaction. And so that's why that figure of 95,000 I had on our sales is actually, according to MLS, at 101,583, because we've had a number of transactions in which we've been on both sides of the real estate transaction, and they're doubled per MLS. So you get full credit for being on both the selling side and the purchase price and the listing side. So that is where we are. We are doing awesome. You guys are doing a phenomenal job as agents within this brokerage. Key right now is listings. We are seeing an uptick in people walking by, and I don't know if you guys all saw the latest from the governor about what is predicted, but if we can reach, I believe it's 65% of the eligible people, at least with their first dose of vaccination, that they will be opening the county, even though we're having an increase of COVID cases. The goal for the governor is 70% across the state, at which point in time I guess the state will be opened. So, and again, we're looking at maybe as early as the end of the month to have Deschutes County open, which would be amazing for us, which means we're going to see far more traffic here downtown. That does not mean, however, we can relax our COVID measures within the office. We are still masking in the office. We are still being very careful about that, and we have to follow those regulations until we're told we no longer have to. But I'm hoping, and they are easing up on outside. Obviously, if you're out hiking like I've been doing all the way, I'm not wearing a mask. I'm not seeing people masking up any longer when I meet them on the trails. They're not necessarily throwing on their mask because they see me. I was just stepping aside on the trail and letting people walk by. But now when they're seeing me, they're saying, hi, we're both stepping aside, but we're not throwing masks on. So that's nice. I like to see people's faces. I like to see smiles and have little conversations with people. Hopefully that will happen more and more as we get more and more people with vaccinations and people feeling more confident about it all. So again, within the office, we are still following the COVID protocols, wearing masks, but floor is getting better, getting people out there as restaurants open up, and we're starting to see more and more people out and about. So with that, I'd like to open this up for any comments or questions or concerns, haves or wants. Anybody have anything they want to talk about? If so, just feel free to unmute your mic and share your thoughts.
Well, I guess I'll say I have an ask if anyone has a coming soon or an off-market listing for some acreage in Central Oregon, preferably Bend, Tumalo, or Sisters, around 2.5 to 5 acres. That's more of an updated estate home that is probably up to 2 million. Looking for something in that regard. So send me an email or text. This is Katie McGinnis talking. Love to see what's out there. Thanks.
2.5 to 5 acres. Would they take more than 5 acres, Katie?
I think so. I think that they would take probably up to 7 or 8, but probably not more than that.
So they don't necessarily want something that is maintained. They just want some space. So they don't necessarily want like land that has, irrigation and could grow hay or anything like that.
Correct. I don't think they're looking for like a farm property, but perhaps something that has a shop or a barn that does have a nice landscaped front area or front yard, backyard,
Okay.
but then also some untamed parts of the property that don't need to be constantly landscaped.
Okay, very good. Thanks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Jane, do you have something here?
No, I was just going to say thank you. I'm really hoping that it's going to start slowing down and that we do see less multiple offers. I don't think I've met one agent that said, wow, I'm really having a good time in this market. Everybody's just like, it's awful.
Yeah, I agree. Discouraged clients, discouraged buyers, people who've lost out multiple times. It's so frustrating. It is so frustrating. And I feel for them all. I review these dead deals for our listings, and I look at these people. This is obviously a first-time home buyer with an FHA loan. This person was a veteran. This person, who lost out, not hardly any money down, and they lose out over and over to cash buyers or people who have very large down payments, which makes sense because they don't have to deal with the appraisal scenario. I get it from a seller's perspective, but all these first-time home buyers, you feel bad for them, you really do.
Yeah, it's really
Kate.
challenging for first-time home buyers. I mean, just speaking from my experience, I've had maybe 2 or 3 clients who have decided now not to buy in Central Oregon, and now they're just continuing to rent. When in January, they were super gung-ho. And as they watch the market change and rise, they're afraid and reluctant, and now they're priced out. So there's that.
It's really tough, Katie. Yeah. And by the way, congratulations, Katie, on being a winner of a scenario where you were able to get your first home, which is wonderful.
Thank you. Yes, I feel very lucky. In fact, I have not seen a home in Redmond listed around $375 in a few weeks. So we feel very fortunate. Thank you.
Very good. Anything else for anybody? Comments, questions? On the geographic farming, we're here to help you. If you want to take on that, that's a wonderful opportunity to really take over a market. With this, when this pandemic is moving on and kind of hopefully going into our rear view mirror and into history, hopefully we'll get a more balanced market, and that's when the geographic farming and being prepped and ready to take over a market, because hey, I've sold your neighbor's home, I've already sold 2 houses, maybe 3 houses in this neighborhood. I need to market myself in this neighborhood. Just sold your neighbor's home, call me, I know how to sell property in here. So I'm hoping that more and more of that we'll start seeing more of that happening, getting back to normal real estate, normal marketing. Any other thing for anybody? Any other questions or concerns or thoughts? Okay, if not, we're here to help you. Just let us know what we can do. Thanks, everybody.